Sell my Bitcoin for millions one day? No, Neo. I'm trying to tell you that when you're ready, you won't have to. Central bankers are tripping over themselves to devalue their currency. Bitcoin will go over fiat currency. Vegas got the motherfuckers. You're against Bitcoin, you're against freedom. Sorry, buddy. I was a little slow on the draw there.
That's okay. It was very exciting to have some music other than that dental office music.
I like the dental office music, but month after month, it gets quite stale and boring.
This is true. Hey, Tomer, how are you?
I'm good. Can you guys hear me? This is my first time joining Twitter Spaces through a laptop.
Wow, you actually sound more clear
Better.
than I've
Yeah.
ever heard you. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, we've got a new thing to do here. Yeah, it's okay.
So tell me this, Tomer, because I love the idea of the laptop spaces, but I've noticed whenever I join, there's like a delay in the emojis or the microphones.
Okay, get ready. I'm gonna sync up an emoji with a 3, 2, 1 emoji. What do you think?
Okay, so I saw that, but now you tell me on my end. I'm going to do a thumbs up. 1, 2, 3, thumb.
It was perfect timing, and I'm sure the audience is fascinated and scintillated with you and I synchronizing emojis. So the problem seems to be fixed.
Everyone has joined the rehearsal space before the space.
I was just doing a mic
Testing.
check. But,
Testing. 1, 2, 3.
mhm. Loren and I recorded a podcast yesterday that it isn't out yet. It'll be out, I guess, at the beginning of May or something. We actually did one Bitcoin Today show about the spiritual nature or the spiritual implications of Bitcoin, and I found that to be really interesting. But this was a discussion of the host, GG, Loren, myself, and Eric V. Stacks, and we just had an amazing conversation. I was saying I learned stuff that I thought that I didn't know that I'd thought. It was a really good discussion. So we'll plug it again when it becomes available here. But it was really my first time actually doing a podcast with Loren.
I would
This
I
doesn't
would love
count.
to. Is there anything else you guys can preview or tease or any takeaway? You as well, Lauren. I'd love to know.
Yeah, it kind of felt like 3 or 4, I guess, was Gigi, brothers just sitting around talking about their journeys, and like we're all on a journey, and everybody has a story. So we were able to respectfully, because we don't all see eye to eye, but just kind of give our perspectives on, things that not a lot of us talk about all the time. Deep stuff like why we're here, and I talked about some existential crises that I'd gone through, and Tomer had talked about his walk through philosophy and other things, trying to rationalize our existence and amazing things like love and free will and what this is all about. So, yeah, super exciting stuff. It's one of my favorite topics because I've always pondered those kind of questions throughout my life. So,
So
yeah.
so whose podcast will it be on?
So the podcast is a podcast. I think it's called Your Bitcoin Story. And the little story about this is the host reached out to me. He said, "Do you want to come on and tell your Bitcoin story?" And I was like, "I'd love to come on your podcast, but I've honestly told my Bitcoin story at least a half dozen times on podcasts. I'm kind of tired of telling it, and I don't feel that I add value to my followers by telling them, 'Hey, come and hear my story again.' So why maybe if we wanted to talk about something else." And we went back and forth, and this is going to be his first episode of what he calls proof of thought. I think that's what he's calling it. And so it's going to be him and 3 guests speaking about some idea. And this one, the spiritual journey of Bitcoin, I guess is what I would call it after having been through it right now. And it turned out to be like a really fascinating, accessible discussion that had our stories, but our stories not in the way we've necessarily told them before, and this kind of abstraction or generalization into the journey that people go on when they become Bitcoiners or when they start getting exposed to Bitcoin, and how Bitcoin does change you and how it doesn't change you, and what insights it reveals to you, and what it models that helps you see the world. There's discussions about humility, there's discussions about knowledge, there's discussion about responsibility. Lots of really good stuff that came up in there. And what the reason I'm bringing it up is because I think that there was a lot of fresh content, and there's a lot of us go on many podcasts, and we find ourselves repeating the same thing over and over, hoping to reach a new audience. But I think what was really interesting to me about this was there were fresh ideas that I hadn't heard anywhere before, um, and they arose because the nature of the discussion was a dialogue, not just one person answering questions that they've been asked many times before. So it was a really interesting format. When it does come out, we'll mention it, but it's top of mind right now, for me. So I'll seed the idea, and then we can bring it back with others when the podcast is actually out.
So with four of you, I mean, it was you, Gigi, Stacks. It's just a great group of Bitcoiners, and plus Lauren.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah.
Thanks, Terrence.
Plus Lauren, and Lauren too. A great group of
And
Bitcoiners,
Lauren.
and Lauren.
I was trying to just steer the vehicle. I was driving. I was the chauffeur, and they were my passengers.
Well,
Having a good
somewhat.
time with the
Well, I'll
guys.
give you a teaser. Like, there was a question that was posed of all of us, and I answered it, and Eric answered it, and then Lauren was, well, before I answer the question, I want to pose another question. So he was playing fast and loose with the rules.
So
I'm used
somewhat.
to my role as moderator, so it was a struggle for me to break out and actually be the
As
guest.
become the guest,
Yeah.
be
Yeah,
the
were you
guest.
trying to call people up onto stage, Lauren, during the podcast? It was very.
Gigi, please raise your hand if you'd like to speak. Gigi, no, no, no. Actually, Tomer had his hand up, so Tomer, you go. Actually, I did nominate you to
You
speak
did.
first one.
He totally did do that, actually, even though there were only four of us. Yeah,
So,
including him.
so somewhat related, and maybe Tomer or someone can put it up in the nest. So we do these spaces all the time. There's so many spaces in the space that I sort of view them, and I probably shouldn't, but I view them as somewhat disposable
Yes.
compared to like a podcast.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's fair, and I learned this for the first time over the last couple of days because I admit I never go back and listen to Spaces because you're living it. But I went and listened to your Philosophy Sunday from last Sunday because you were talking about it, and I was blown away at the high signal and content. It sounded like a very deep podcast, and for 2 hours straight.
Yeah.
And so, I
Yeah.
mean,
The,
I
the
wish someone
philosophy
would put that up
talks
as a
are
podcast. It's fantastic.
the philosophy talks are different, and maybe someone who knows how to download them and put them in a podcast channel, who wants to kind of volunteer to do it, or just run with it. It's all open source. So if you want to create Tomer's Bitcoin Philosophy Sundays podcast, they're all but one of them has been recorded, and maybe one of them kind of glitched halfway through, so you'd have to string two of them together. But they are much more like podcasts with random guests showing up, and I try to maintain the focus on the topic of the week very closely on there. We and this most recent one was, you said you enjoyed it. It was the best. So I don't want you to have your expectations that all of them are quite as good as that. Some of them do meander like spaces into tangential topics, or we get a guest. We get someone raising their hand who it doesn't make the best use of their time or rambles on. But this one was a really good one. I was really pleased that Canute joined us at the end and provided some challenge. I don't think he'd been listening to the whole conversation, but he provided some challenge on a couple of points, and I agreed to have him come, not this coming Sunday because it's Easter, but the next Sunday, and so 2 weeks, from last Sunday, it'll be Knut, and it'll be him and I discussing ideas we disagree on, amicably. But I do intend to call it, and he thought it was quite funny. I do intend to call it Bitcoin Philosophy Sunday, Knut's Lies Exposed. So it'll be a nice title to bring people in, even though it'll be a very respectful conversation.
Yeah, Lauren, maybe we should have Cosmo isn't here with us today, but he has the capabilities and he likes doing that. We should have him rip Tomer's spaces and put those up as a podcast.
Mm.
At least that one, if that's even possible. Hey, I
Yeah.
see we've got Matthew McConaughey here driving over in his Lincoln. We've got Christopher up here. Anyone else wants to come on up to stage? Raise your hands. How's it going, guys?
Always good in Bitcoin land.
Christopher, we haven't seen you in a while. What's new with you? What are your Bitcoin thoughts?
Oh man, I know I've been a little bit heads down on some work stuff. Um, Cue the booze. I'm about to go see Powell speak live at the Economic Club here in Chicago. So tune in like I think it's 2 hours when he'll start speaking. I would imagine it's going to be a nothing burger today, but you never know when Powell speaks. Markets can move.
But hey, like you said, if you introduce booze into the equation, it might be a lot more fun.
Aren't you going to set us up and say, like, he's going to say something, it's going to crash the US dollar, you have exactly an hour left to buy Bitcoin before moon?
That I think is Loren's job. I'm just an
Well,
observer
Chris,
here.
aren't you going with Joe C? So maybe that'll make it a little more
Yes,
interesting.
Joe is coming, and it will be newsworthy. Dark was going to join us too, but he is otherwise disposed. I'm half. I'm no. I'm more than half joking. I know that Dark would never get within 4,000 miles of Powell, but
Well, we need to know, like, what knot did he tie his tie in? What shade of gray is the tie?
that moves the market. Don't joke.
This is why I just think it's so preposterous. But have fun.
I saw it was like right before the election. I think it was in like maybe late October or something. Trump was here too, and I think most of the people on the stage know how I feel about Trump. So I'm a little bit more excited to go see Powell, marginally more. But I mean, it's how many this is probably the most consequential moment in at least my recent history with like hearing the Fed speak. So it'll just be interesting. I'm not really, like I'm not a fanboy. I don't really care, but it is sort of the interesting thing I'm doing this week. So anyway, I'm about to walk out the door, so I'll drop here in a few minutes. But just wanted to jump up and say hi, guys.
Okay, well, it's nice to see you, Chris. I as well only have until the top of the hour today. I've got another call, but maybe I'll join after if it's not too long.
Yeah, no problem. And then okay, last question. Then the audience doesn't have to bear with our technical setup. So Tomer, because I like how you sound, and I like the idea of the laptop desk setup. But you're tethered now, right? You can't just effortlessly switch to your phone and then go for a Tomer walk.
That's right. I have to stay within the zone. As far as yeah, no, my phone does not know that I'm in spaces. I'm just looking at it right now. It doesn't see anything, and I'm afraid that if I tried to join, I would probably get this. Like, I can easily leave and rejoin. I wouldn't try to host the spaces um, from my laptop. I don't think that would work, but clearly now I can, in fact, be a guest, and I can use the much higher quality microphone that is on my laptop and all these other fancy doodads like voice isolation, which seem to only be on the laptop.
Yeah, you sound great. You sound like Asteroid usually does. I mean, quality wise, not verbal wise.
No,
Hey,
thank
Dark,
you.
how's it going? Nice to see you here.
Yeah, I'd rather stab myself in the thigh than go see Powell speak.
Yeah, the Chicago commies are going. Don't worry, Dark. We'll cover it for you.
Yeah, I just want to make that absolutely clear. Like listening to a global international criminal, that's bad enough. But then having to listen to Powell and Josie, I've had enough. No.
Oh, mean.
What?
It cuts the
Shots
G.
fired. Oh my goodness.
By the way, have you guys noticed this handsome-looking fellow on stage? You might have to look at his name to
Lauren B.
figure out who he is. Yes, especially when Lauren interrupts and says he's attractive. You know, he's the handsome man.
Thank you, everybody.
Anyways, you're not going to see that M&M logo anymore because we've got Tux Boy's up here now.
There's so many talking heads. I felt left out, so I just had to make that move.
Oh my gosh, macro?
I don't know if I'm the only one, but uh, it's. I mean, I love it when people reveal who they are, but for me, Macro, his voice doesn't match the headshot I'm looking at. You don't look at all what I thought you would
Because
look
that's
like.
the picture when he went to his prom.
No, that
That is
is
exactly
when
what
I
I
was
pictured.
in my buddy's wedding, actually. So
Right after the prom.
yes, right after the prom. No, I'm 31 in that picture, and I am 32 now. So
So, Macro,
Okay.
are you coming out with something or doing something that you wanted to reveal who you were? Because that's usually why a lot of Bitcoin educators sort of
Tomer's
reveal.
in the zone and macro's
yeah,
coming
so
out.
I'm going to start selling my course on how to become a passive income investor. And no, I have nothing to sell, nothing to
Mailbox
announce.
money. Make money while you sleep.
Exactly. I like to talk to you all about vending machines today. So you can actually use your vending machines to gain passive income if you use QR codes so that people can pay in sats. And you can be stacking while you sleep every time somebody needs a candy bar. So please come to my free online courses that'll then try to force you into a $2,000 paid course that teaches you nothing. But it sounds really cool. So no,
Can't wait.
I have nothing to sell, nor do I ever plan on selling anything like that. So I don't know. I was just tired of the MM logo and decided to change. And then I also, when I first started the account, I was not sure if I wanted to stay like as a pseudonym or not. So I figured, well, I can start there because you can always reveal who you are at a later date, but you can't just go from being yourself to a pseudonym, right? So I just decided to start as a pseudonym, and I always thought that I probably would just eventually shift it to just being me, and I just decided to go ahead and do that. So yeah, no real reason other than, like I said, I felt left out because everybody else is a talking head. So I gotta join you guys. And there's not enough mats in the space either, right? Like we only have two mats on stage now, and I know of at least four or five others. So we gotta work on that mat. We gotta get more of those guys in here. So
The mats have to stay together.
yeah, like I said, I said this yesterday on the Wolf Web 3 space. We gotta have a mats only Bitcoin space. So maybe I'll start hosting that one of these days for Bitcoin Today.
If
It'll
you
be
look
Bitcoin
into the
Today,
name, the name
mats
Matt
only.
actually means gift of God. So it's a good thing for everyone that we're gathered here today. So I want to point that out.
I
Yeah,
had a
you're welcome,
class in
everybody.
high school that had 11 people, and 6 of the 11 were either Chris or some Chris flavor. Christian, Christopher, Chris. That was a very confusing class. So be thankful there aren't so many.
That actually
Yeah,
brings up
exactly.
an interesting point. You made me think about when we were joking there about the hustle culture, or you're starting some like click funnel thing. Is that I
It's
remember
whoa,
when?
whoa, whoa, Terrence. It's passive income investing. Okay, let's get the terms right.
Oh yeah, sorry, I haven't. I need to take your course. But no,
Just send me
like
$2,000, and I may or may not teach you something about it.
okay, well, if you send me 12 seed words, I'll send you 24 back, so you get double. Um, no, it's like when I came in 2017, I remember right around that time that there were a lot of big, well-known Bitcoiners today who were sort of thinking about courses, and they were trying to think, the fiat mind of how to monetize and how do I educate. And I get that. That totally makes sense. I think people should be paid for their value, and nothing against any of that. But I notice in this space compared to, many other spaces, whether it's, real estate or whatever, a lot of us want to just open source, and we want to do things for free. We do really want to help other people. And I don't think that's the first place people go now. Like, oh, I want to educate and help teach. Oh, great. How do I monetize it? Um, I don't know if there's
No,
any other
I
places that are
completely
unique like
agree with
that.
that. I completely agree with that. And I think that's one of the things that honestly separates. It's interesting because I've had these conversations with people in person before, where I was actually talking to somebody at work one time about Bitcoin, explaining it to them. And after we had like a 30-minute conversation, they ended it with, yeah, but what's in it for you? Like I was trying to sell them some kind of multi-level marketing scheme or something. And I was like, no, it's like I'm telling you about electricity, man. Like, hey, I think you should use lights instead of candles to read at night, right? And then they're like, yeah, but what's in it for you, bub? I'm like, nothing, man. I'm trying to sit here telling you the internet is a better technology than snail mail. That's all. And it's everybody's always trying to sell something, I feel like now, and everybody's so fatigued by that and so used to it. They just kind of reflexively reel back when you're talking to them like, oh my god, what are you trying to sell me, man? I'm like, nothing. I actively make nothing from this. I actively enjoy it, and I just want to try to help people understand what's going on out there. And if I do ever get paid for something, I want it to be because I am actually providing real world value in exchange for what I'm being paid for. So like in the future, if somebody's paying me for my water treatment expertise, for example, well, yeah, that makes complete sense to me. But if I'm just out here basically being like, hey, I think electricity is a good thing that people should be using, I don't expect anybody to pay me for that. That's just like common sense, you know?
Mhm. But
That's
macro, there is a benefit for you in trying to bring someone into the Bitcoin community, into Bitcoin, which is you're trying to. It's like we talked about this in this podcast yesterday with Lauren, and I don't want to go too deep into the topics, but at the end of the day, it's like you're actually spreading love. You're bringing someone into a community where you will benefit because there is more value in the network, more people in the network with whom you can voluntarily transact, and who can voluntarily choose to participate in a network in which they can voluntarily transact without the risk of censorship, seizure, inflation, all sorts of other things where they can be masters of their own wealth. And so it's an act of generosity and kindness and an act of selfishness, right? Like we all want the Bitcoin community to be as full of people who are affected by Bitcoin, changed by Bitcoin into using money that isn't money that you steal from people. It isn't money that you counterfeit. It isn't money that you appeal to the government to print in your favor. It's money that represents the work and value that we've done and exchanged with with others, and that is reliable and certain and transparent and unseizable, all that kind of stuff. And so I'm not trying to like call you out here. I'm just trying to say when you introspect even more deeply as to why is it that you spread this? It's there's a there's a love of your fellow man that you're trying to give to them, and there's also a self-interested benefit there, which is the living in a great society that isn't filled with corruption and broken money is in your own self-interest and the interest of the person who you're speaking to.
Yeah, no,
there is.
I couldn't
Oh,
agree
sorry.
more with that. Just real quick, Chris, just to reply to Tomer, I definitely agree with everything you just said completely. I think the simplified version of it would just be when people are asking, yeah, well, how do you benefit? What they're really looking for is how are you immediately gaining fiat from trying to tell me that Bitcoin's a good thing? And that's what I always end up having to push back against in person. And it's hard to articulate to somebody all the things that you just did and not come across like you're basically I don't know, a Jehovah's Witness or something on their doorstep, right? Like I'm here to spread the gospel of Bitcoin because I love you. That's where I'm pretty sure if I say that to some boomer at work, I'm gonna get some weird side eye. So
Isn't that and
um,
isn't that just such a sad reflection on the state of our civilization right now, or of our society, that to
it
tell
really is.
someone that you love them and want something good for them raises their ire and suspicion? Because like even in my lifetime, that hasn't always been the case. We've become cynical and jaded in the you know in the 2000s at least, but in the 1980s and 1990s, I don't really remember people being highly suspicious of everyone of their friends, of people who they co-worked with. Right? That knives in the back mentality really only seemed to have emerged. I'm not going to give it a specific date because it was obviously gradual, but it this lack of trust of other people and institutions and things. Like there's a lot of charts I think I've seen that
I think there was a
there's
meaningful shift post 9/11. I mean, I was only in the fourth
yeah
grade when it happened, but I remember the world just feeling completely
yeah
different, and it really never felt like it returned to what it was
yeah
before.
right.
I
And I
think
think
fiat plays
COVID
a role
shattered a
here
lot
too,
of people
though. I
too.
think fiat is feedstock for consumerism, and part of the reason why we all feel like we have to continuously pull in more capital because they are sneakily creating the money, increasing the money supply rate much faster than we are increasing our own wealth, engine revolution rates. So, the reality is we're just on a treadmill that's going backwards faster than we can squirt ourselves forwards. And it's nice to get our money out of that old system and into Bitcoin, but there's still so much of the infrastructure of the society that's still fiat based, sadly.
Let's
One last quick comment, and then I'm dropping to go see Dark's Idol in a few minutes, so I gotta hang up. Uh, this brings up the biggest book that I recommend, and this is why: The Give and Take by Adam Grant, because it's not people don't trust those that are just trying to give altruistically. They've got to have some kind of ulterior motive, because that's what we've been trained. We see these takers everywhere, everywhere, and they're always trying to sell us stuff or take something from us, because they know that they've got more information than the other person. It's like, that's just so disgusting. It's like, we should all want to help each other, and when we all want to help each other without the expectation of receiving something, we all win like 1,000 times over. So I really, really encourage, if you haven't, I have no interest in this book, just read the book Give and Take. It will really help you understand this concept. We should all really aspire to be givers, and you got to watch out for the takers. They're everywhere. And that's why it's sad, but that's why people are so questioning when you evangelize and you proselytize things that you really love and care about, and you want to help people. Because if we all are doing our little part to help each other, help our fellow man, then we're all going to win big. We don't have to, it's not a zero-sum game. We don't have to fuck each other over. Anyway, with that, I'll talk to you guys later. I'll tell Pal you say hi, Dark. Take care, guys.
I've got
Thanks,
to drop
Chris.
too, so I'll drop at the same time as Chris, and with I love you
Oh,
all as well.
all right. Thanks, Tomer. Appreciate you coming.
Cheers.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Hey, Aaron, and then Eggman, and then we can say hello, see what's on Ben's mind. I see he's on the stage here with his off-centered mohawk. What's up, Aaron?
What's up, guys? Just wanted to come up, say hi from the shadows. But yes, to add a little context, it's been so many years for me curating information, trying to separate those, trying to take from the ones who give. And my personal experience is, once Bitcoin clicks in and you start feeling better, doing better, financially and lifestyle, there's no other choice than to pass it along. You want everyone to understand that this works, uh, and it's just natural. At least for me, I can offer a service without making sure the other person is getting something good out of it. Uh, and personally, if I pass the Bitcoin information along, everyone else gets better and the network gets better, which means I get better. So I don't know. It became so natural that sometimes I don't understand when grifters and people uh get in there, and the people that is still not trust uh this information. I get where they come from, but it's like it's so hard sometimes not to come like a crazy seller that you gotta get on these. Anyway, just wanted to say hi and come out of the shadows. So I
Thanks,
gotta go
Aaron.
back to work.
Thanks, Aaron. Hey, Eggman.
Hey, good morning, fellas. Uh, I think Terrence and Lawrence, you remember when we had that discussion about I was going to meet with that investment advisor. Do you remember that, Terrence? We were
Yeah, I
talking.
do too, but I don't know who the hell Lawrence is.
I
Yeah, are
guess
you talking about Lorenzo?
no. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Terrence, directed to you. The feedback is literally they kind of looked at me like I was crazy. This is a very high visibility money manager, blue blood in nature. I met with the head of their crypto research committee and the portfolio manager. They really, frankly, didn't want any part of trying to direct the trust to engage in Bitcoin, and they thought it was a tech stock. I mean, it's so. Point I wanted to make was, we say we're really early. you've got major investment managers that are, at least a year out to even consider Bitcoin.
Hey, Terrence, before we get to Ben, I just wanted to weigh in on this whole Matt coming out thing because it's not really good for the likes of you and I. You're no longer the most handsome man on the stage, which I'm sorry, sir. Also, I think the timing, there's something there because I think he's actually going to try out for either Thunder Down Under or one of those type groups, maybe the Chippendales.
Oh, over in Vegas?
Yeah, in Vegas. So he's
Oh,
actually going to wear the outfit that he's pictured in here. But on the happy note, he's going to orange pill a lot of ladies. So good and bad. Anyway, it's good to have Ben here. Maybe we need Ben on as a guest one day. Terrence, what do you think?
here's the great thing. Ben doesn't realize he is the guest today. Like
Welcome our guest, Ben
yes,
Sessions,
yeah.
everybody.
Oh,
Eric
wow.
Yakes
Thank
for
you.
yeah, for those who are expecting Eric Yakes, he woke up sick this morning. So he's at the doctor's
Oh,
office.
so we
So
we don't have a guest.
we do.
It's Ben.
Hey
Yes, it's
guys,
Ben.
real
Hey,
quick.
welcome, Ben. Welcome to the stage.
Exactly as planned. Glad to
Oh,
be here.
sorry, my fiance has a message for you.
The only one
Oh
he's
dear.
orange pilled is me, his fiance. So he will not be trying out for
Love it.
anything. Just FYI.
Yeah, you have
Wait, who?
triggered me, lady, sir.
AI is getting so good these days. That's incredible.
That was a joke. I
Yeah, I
I
know. We
am
we
very
don't.
sorry. I take it back.
I thought, do we have to go back above six figures for me to actually get a girlfriend and not use my AI girlfriend, or how does that work? I'm gonna
Dilly
get
has an
hit here in
answer
a
for that.
second. So,
Yeah.
I don't have an answer.
Okay. Well,
Now back to our regularly scheduled programming with our
yeah.
guest Ben Sessions.
Hey,
Good
Ben.
morning.
Thanks for agreeing to be a guest today. How's it going?
No problem. I'm glad we planned this far in advance. I'm super prepared, and I have lots of things to say. So I did want to tag into some of the stuff you guys were just chatting about, though. Like the, I guess the idea
The
of,
Chippendale stuff?
yeah, that was very important to me. Like
Suspenders?
yeah, all of that. But before that, the like monetization of, like in and around Bitcoin and how people have approached it and like how to provide value to others for free first and foremost, and kind of this inclination for Bitcoiners to want to do that. And yeah, I mean, like I'm now lucky enough that I get to do this as a living, but prior to now, the channel, it was basically, I'd say, about 4 years of just making videos for free as a hobby, like outside of my fiat job. And so it was, I think a lot of people interpret this as a labor of love that they're lucky enough to do as a hobby outside of their regular stuff that they do to actually make money and support their families. And some people, whenever there's an opportunity to be able to do it actually full time, it's everybody, probably a lot of people here would jump at that opportunity. And so, yeah, it's just trying to do it in a, how would I say, um, do it in a moral way. And it's especially early on, you basically couldn't monetize, especially as Bitcoin only. You could only really monetize if you were like shilling shitcoin trading and like ICOs and all that kind of stuff. And so thus I just didn't monetize. Like there was no moral way to do it for an extended period of time. And then that didn't start shifting really until after the 2017 ICO bubble, at least in my world. There started to be like some options of like, being able to make the videos and you know
And pay
make
the
a little,
bills.
yeah,
Yeah.
and like, yeah, pay the bills. Like, and I'm really, I wasn't able to do that just with the channel until 2020, and it started in 2016. So,
Ben,
it,
I'm super stoked that you're saying this stuff too, because it's nice that you are having that moral battle within, because it, it speaks to your integrity, and I really appreciate that about you. I just wanted to throw in, if you
Uh,
guys have questions for our guest today, Ben, just throw your hand up. Sorry to cut you off there. I just wanted to get that housekeeping in there. So go
Yeah.
go ahead and finish your sentiment there while I
Yeah.
shut up.
No worries, no worries. Yeah, so I mean, it's been really tricky to navigate, and it's gradually now it's not an issue. Like now, but early on, I basically had to approach it in a way of, first of all, what ways can you actually monetize? Because it was that I wanted to do this full time, and I couldn't. I had to have a full 9 to 5. And it takes a long, especially some of the tutorials, they take forever to put together. Like sometimes it's like multiple days, like full days, learning the thing, recording it, editing it. Like it is a lot of time to do
Yeah,
it.
I see
So
you just did a 2-hour Sparrow
yeah.
fully encompassed video, so I can only imagine that was like 6 hours of recording.
Yeah, exactly. Let alone like scripting it out and figuring out the flow and like, the outline and editing and all of that. So, it takes a lot of time. And so my goal was to be able to dedicate as much time as possible to it, which means it would have to be a source of income that could self-sustain. And so the initial approach was, okay, the easiest and most practical way to monetization was to have sponsors. But as I said before, the only people hitting you up for sponsorships is, hey, like we're dropping a token, or hey, we're like this crazy like derivatives exchange getting people to gamble on God knows what. And so that was just untenable. And so what I effectively had to do when I made the call to just try and do the channel was say, what things do I currently use that I think are awesome and genuinely help people? And then cold reach out to those companies and people and say, hey, would you consider sponsoring the show? So like, especially early on, every single sponsor was somebody that I kind of handpicked myself and reached out to and gradually convinced people to help support the channel on its own. And then over time, even some of those that I had kind of handpicked, there were times where I basically had to drop sponsors because their actions no longer coincided with like my moral compass. So like the one that was the craziest that not a lot of people know about, there was an exchange in Canada prior to not prior to, but like there weren't a lot of like Bitcoin only options, but this one seemed to be at least like kind of promoting good best practices and everything. So I was like, okay, this could be a possibility, and I'll just talk about Bitcoin. But then, unbeknownst to the company, somebody working there the day before the sponsorship was supposed to start, when they had already paid me, I got an email being like, hey, Ben, I watched the channel. I love the work and everything. I just wanted to bring this to your attention before the sponsorship starts. And it was a low key, like, like a press release type thing. And it was that I shudder to even say it was that Calvin Ayre had invested in the company and that they were going to list BSV. And I was like, immediately called up the guy that was like in charge of everything at the company. I was like, how do I give you your money back? And so the guy's like, oh no, what happened? I'm like, I sent him the press release. I was like, I cannot work with you. And so I literally just had to send back the money and just like go without until I like found a replacement later on. But it was like, shit. And stuff like that happened more than a couple of times. Like even when, I think it's different now, but like when Wasabi was running their own coordinator and they decided to basically use on-chain analysis to check everybody before they allowed them to coin join. This was like right around the trucker protests, like later that year, and that doesn't seem to make sense to me. And it was a surprise. Like, they didn't say anything to me beforehand, and they had been sponsoring the show, and so they just low key dropped that one day, and everybody's like, "Yo, Ben, what the fuck?" And so was I. And so I literally, like, that day, I was like, "Yeah, I think we're gonna have to part ways," because I just didn't kind of agree with what they were doing. And yeah, so like, there's been a number of times where you just kind of have to watch, and if things are ever shifting, and you kind of have to be on your toes. And sometimes, like, if you fuck up and you make a misstep, like, you kind of have to own that, and just, rather than trying to defend yourself, just be like, yeah, that was a bad decision. I think that's kind of the best course of action, because it's the most genuine. So, anyways, long story short, or short story long, um, there's the sponsorship route, but you got to be so careful. And I think now what I'm leaning into is hopefully building up kind of the Bitcoin mentor thing, so that, as you said, there's always free resources in the videos. So people can always go and just find whatever they need and learn it on their own. But then when it's super time intensive, and you're spending like one-on-one hours and hours with people, then, you can charge for your time. And so that's kind of what the Bitcoin mentor thing is, while still providing a free resource at the same time through the channel. So that's kind of where I'm sitting right now.
Yeah, it's a really great subject, Ben. I'm glad you brought that up. I think, and we've witnessed this, as lots of Bitcoin only companies have grown, or even podcasts. And because the reality is, a lot of the money and funding, that starts off, even though it gets burned later, comes from VCs, and they throw all of this money out, and they want to attract people through the podcasts and through online. And oftentimes those aren't Bitcoin only companies. And I remember Peter McCormick really struggled with this, but he has been such a net positive for educating people and bringing people into the space, that it's like, well, I I I had to take Ledger as a sponsor, or I had to take BlockFi or whoever, and at the time we all thought those were good actors. There's lots of people that touted all of those things. We only learned later, but it's just a challenge. I remember talking to Corey Clipston of Swan about this too. It's, as a Bitcoin only company, you're just limited, because it's there isn't this pump and dump. There aren't all these investors coming in who see potential to make a lot of money. There isn't as much arbitrage, because just Bitcoin is just so simple. It is what it is. And I know Lauren and I have been talking about this in back channels too, just about, what do you do when you're launching a Bitcoin only company, but there's very few Bitcoin only products that actually have enough money that can sponsor you to keep the business running, right? So you do have to charge, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, Bitcoiners' time is valuable, and they know more than anyone just, the cost of actual time, which is why they're saving in Bitcoin in the first place. So you need to be charged for the value you provide, the value you put into the economy. You should absolutely charge for. I think what the distinction we're making, and maybe it's a little bit of nuance, is, not trying to scam people or hustle people, which is part of the leftover culture that we learn from the fiat world. Like, how can we, get more money for doing this or that is just readily free and available for others.
Hey,
Um,
Terrence, can I chime in too? Because I.
no, I didn't see your hand.
Okay, let me put my hand up here. There. Is that better?
Yes, go Lorenzo.
Thank you. No, I still like. I applaud Ben's integrity. Like, that's amazing, and I'm not sure that Peter McCormack is actually the best example of somebody who has followed in the footsteps, because some of the sponsors on his show I found very questionable. So I don't think that's a great example. But I also really love the whole personal responsibility aspect, owning it. It's like, yeah, I screwed up. I own it, and I'll do my best to fix it. I think really how you fix your mistakes often identifies you and really determines and shows what kind of person you are, more than the actual mistakes you make. So kudos to you, Ben. Really appreciate that about you. I used to really give Peter a hard time in call him like Peter McCuckmeg and just be a jerk. But that was back during my toxic days, where it was part of my journey, but I don't want to go there anymore. I actually was able to apologize and to his
Wait, you're
face.
not toxic anymore?
Say that again.
You're not toxic anymore?
Oh, who let that guy up here?
I don't know, but why don't you finish, Lauren? And I have
Uh,
something to say, and then we
I,
can
I
be scarce can raise his hand. Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, I think Feather actually was up next too. So no, I just wanted to throw that in there and give Ben some applause. And I think Feather probably had a question because he put his hand up while Ben was talking. So let's go to Feather.
Yeah, no, we'll yeah go to feathers. But so I hear what you're saying. My point is that it takes an extreme amount of funds to launch certain things and have certain things go. With Peter McCormick, and he's now got Cheat Code going. He's got the Bedford football team. He had one of the biggest, maybe if not the biggest, Bitcoin podcast out there, and and with the amount of information and guests and signal that he was bringing, it was a trade-off. And so I just think that that's going to always be a struggle, because you want a speculative attack on the dollar. That's kind of a speculative attack on crypto. So anyways, it may be an unpopular opinion, but Feather, what's on your mind?
Hey, thanks. Just wanted to want to say quick thanks to Ben. I've really appreciated. He's been my favorite YouTube channel, and I really have to believe that there are so many people like me that are interested in Bitcoin and want to deep dive, but then you start doing the deep dive and you're like you just kind of hit a wall if you're not super tech savvy or yeah. So I've really appreciated all your videos and just how you literally make it like dummy proof. And I have to believe you're bringing so many people into Bitcoin that otherwise would, be intimidated and kind of turn away. So thank you for that. Did have a quick question. I, based on your videos, recently started running a Start 9 and a Bitcoin Knots node and trying to run with Ocean. I did notice that you closed your Lightning channel. So I was curious. I did see you put up a little video of how I think you kind of got screwed because everyone was trying to connect with your channel, which makes sense because that's exactly what I was about to do. But wanted to see, did you, for somebody like me who's not going to have, a whole lot of inbound liquidity, um, what are your thoughts on Lightning at this point? Is it worth basically trying to get Lightning payouts from Ocean for my mining, which I'm literally running like a future bit, also based on your video, and a bidax. So not a ton of terahash there. So just want to see what your thoughts were on whether it would be even worth doing the whole Lightning channel to get payouts from Ocean.
Yeah, great question. And also, thanks for the kind words. I appreciate it. It's really cool to hear anytime somebody's like used not only like a video to learn something, but like strung together a number of skills across various pieces of content. That's super awesome. So, in regards to, so yeah, just to touch on I've closed my Lightning channels. Yeah, when I first started my foray into Lightning, I did what ended up being, I think at the time it was one of the only like fully fleshed out how to do a Lightning node videos on YouTube. And because of that, and because of I still like didn't fully understand like liquidity implications, I made it, and then I was like, anybody that wants to, you can create a channel to my Lightning node. And so what ended up happening when you kind of start diving into Lightning Network liquidity is I was like, oh my God, I've got like 200 channels, which to me at first sounded amazing. But the problem was that all of these people that made Lightning channels to me, that was like their only channel. So they basically loaded their node with money. They connected to me with a channel. And what would happen is anytime that I opened a channel to any like good, well-connected node, like 200 people were utilizing me as a mechanism to then route their payments. So the good channel with outbound liquidity would drain basically immediately. And all of the other channels, when I would look and it would say, hey, you've got a ton of liquidity on your side, like you have a whole bunch of money on your Lightning node. Go, and then I would try to spend, and no transactions would work, like nothing, not even small ones. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I start looking through, and all of these channels are just single endpoint channels that just go to one other node with no other links. And so that means that unless I was paying that person, I had no ability to spend. So I had all this money sitting on the Lightning node and 200 channels and no liquidity. Like I just couldn't spend. It was all dead ends. And so I ended up having to basically nuke that node and start from scratch, and just like, based on my habits, re-engineer how I was doing my channels. In regards to the datum, all that stuff, what I would say is I would kind of dual purpose it. If you're gonna go and like get an inbound channel and then use that to get little lightning payouts from your future bit and all that. If you're gonna go about it that way instead of just like solo lotto mining, I would double up and use how would you do that? Because the datum and ocean, the payouts have to be done through Sea Lightning. And so you would need to link that. The tricky bit, what I'm getting at is AlbiHub is super easy to manage, but it uses LND. And so you can remotely connect to your Lightning like for a
Yep.
day-to-day spending wallet, but it's not as reliable, I would say. So I don't know. I'm kind of at a crossroads there. Like for me, what I'm actually doing now is I have my future bit. I have a handful of bit axes and like a brains mini miner, and I just point them all at the future bit and I lotto mine just with that. That's kind of like my setup. And then my Lightning node, my Start 9, I just connect that via Albi Hub. So you can use like Albi Go on mobile, or Zeus is pretty easy to connect. So that's kind of what I'm using in my setup currently. I don't know if that helps. I know there's a lot there, but it just really depends on what your goals are.
No, that
Hey,
does.
quick
Thank you.
quick comment, then we can go back to Feather, and then I see TC's hand is up. But do you realize how nerdy we are? There's hundreds of people listening in on a customer service call right now. It's unbelievable. Okay, back to you, TC.
Oh, hey, I wanted to jump up two important points of business. Number one, I got to say good morning and hello to my friend BTC Sessions. But number two is I have some input on the running a Lightning node thing, because I realized that actually for the last year and a half or so, I've had an incredibly stable Lightning node, which is a totally different experience from the first, I would say, year to 2 years that I was trying to run my own Lightning node and having a variety of frustrations. A couple things that I did that kind of, the way I would think of it is it kind of greased the wheels of the network, is I made sure that I have channels to some very active large channel partners. So I opened up a channel to Kraken, and then I opened up a second channel to Kraken. And what's amazing is those two channels are actually just every single day routing. And there's something about having two channels to one of these larger channel partners versus just having one. And it makes sense if you think about how Lightning works, where the liquidity is on one side or another of the channel. And you'll regularly end up with situations where, you've got sats on both sides, especially if you have two channels. So that if a payment runs through your node over to your big channel partner like Kraken, now the liquidity's on their side. They have a payment has to go through them coming back your direction for that liquidity to come back on your side. If you have a second channel with liquidity on your side, you could route another payment the same way. And so I find that has actually like really helped my node's presence on the network. I have several channel partners that I have two different channels with. And the other thing I'll add, which is also what was a little bit kind of like counterintuitive to me at first, but makes total sense, is you got to actually like have more liquidity. Like I used to have a bunch of small channels with like, 100,000 sats or something like that on it. And those just don't route very frequently. Obviously, like the less liquidity on a channel, the fewer different kinds of payments could route through. So the bottom line is the whole point is you're trying to kind of like train the network to view your node as a useful routing path. And so it does require that you have a little bit more liquidity. I don't like opening channels that are less than 1 million sats now, because I realize those channels that have, very little liquidity on them just don't get used. It makes perfect sense. If you think about all these payments zipping around on the network at various sizes, you have to, create a path, a routing path that's going to handle, more of those payments. And so that's just kind of a snowball action. As you get more routing occurring, the network sort of looks to your channels more, and it's sort of a self-fulfilling thing over a long term. I've got, I think, 13 or 14 channels open right now on my node, and it's been very stable, and I have routing every day, and I haven't had a failed payment in well over a year. So it's one of those things you takes some time to get used to, but there are techniques that will immediately make your node more error free.
Feather, how was all of that for you?
Great. Can I follow up with one final tech support related to that question? Basically, is there a world where you open a channel, say for 1 million sats, like you said, TC, and like Ben mentioned, having to nuke his channel? Is there a world where you can't get your sats back? Like, how did he have to get his money back, basically, or his sats back? Um, is there a world where I open a channel for 1 million sats and I can't close it because the liquidity is on the other end?
No, if it gets force closed, it's really just a waiting game. And typically those time lock contracts are going to take quite a while. If it does get force closed, you might have to wait a couple weeks, sometimes way longer even, but those sats will come back to you. I've never actually like lost sats that I put in a channel, but I've had force closes before, and it's been an uncomfortably long time in those situations where you're just waiting for those, lightning sats to come back to your on-chain wallet. But yeah, it's just a matter of time.
Just the tip. Did you have something to say? That's you, dippity tippity.
Hello, everyone. I hope you hear me correct. I hope I'm just going to say hello and say a little thing. I'm from Argentina. I wasn't expecting BT Sessions to be here, so I don't have a specific question for him. But I was just trying to say hello and thank you for your work, for your not only BT Sessions but also Terence and Loren. What you do with the education we all need. I'm from Argentina, so I'm I'm very aware of how Austrian economics works and inflation and fiat money devaluating. Here we have a president, Javier Milei, that is doing the right thing. We are the only G20 nation with surplus. We are from since July of 2024, we have zero emissions from the printer. So we are making the nominal anchor of the denominator. Here is pesos. We are dealing with the inflation, and we are very happy with the results of this Austrian economics. So I went on the full falling through the rabbit hole of Bitcoin and reaching the Austrian economics. And when I found a president or a politician that it's like an outlier of the politician because he's an outsider, but we can't believe our luck. We are making Argentina great again. Truly, I'm not expecting you to follow down the MAGA politics. I'm just saying you, but I came to Bitcoin with expecting NGU tech. I stayed for the education, the Austrian, and and now I'm teaching fellow Argentinians and Spaniards and in different Spanish spaces. I'm teaching philosophy about this. So I think this whole rabbit hole is not just engineering, energetics, Kardashev scale, reserve of value, and tech. Like you are also tech savvy with the nodes and the Lightning Network nodes and all that. But I just want to thank you and be a whole part of this community and teach everyone about philosophy and Austrian and devaluating fiat is going to probably change the world. And thank you all for your work. I'm happy to listen now. Thanks.
Thanks, man. Coincidentally, Ben's hair is actually just the tips have been dipped in
Just a
orange.
Just
tip.
the tip. We
Just the
call his
tips.
hair a prom promise. Yeah, just the
Prom
tip.
promise. Ben, sorry, you came off mute. I didn't. I was just trying to interject a lame joke there, and a lot of my jokes fall flat. Ben,
Let's
I,
mute you.
I enjoy it. Anything to do with the tip is above board.
always
It's fun.
funny, always funny. But then Terrence Daddy pulls his belt out and starts slapping it and threatening me, so I have to shut up again. Sorry. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, no, that was fantastic. But I did want to say thanks for the kind words and really cool to see. It always blows my mind again, just coming across people that are so far away that have been like, oh, hey, I used whatever video to learn this, that, and the other thing, and it's really cool. And also the people that then take initiative to become educators in their own right in their local communities. I think that's huge, and not to be diminished in any way. I think those are the people that can have a lot of direct impact with the people around them. A lot of people always think like, well, how am I going to change the world? And quite often the time is the answer is start where you are in your local community and build out from there. If you can do it on a small scale, it can continue to grow. And never forget that the people that you teach become teachers in their own right. And so the butterfly effect of that happening is insane. So yeah, start small, start local, and go from there.
Yeah. Hey, Ben. I totally sign off on that one because we kind of started doing our own thing in Northern California here, and it's like there's a million podcasts out there about Bitcoin, but you know what? That's cool because you are even if you impact one or two people, even if it's local, even if it's your friends and family or your local meetup group or whatever it is, like do it. I hear a lot of people, saying negative things about people starting a podcast, like, oh, there's a million of them out there. Like, who cares, man? Like, the more the merrier. Like, maybe it's your voice that's going to change somebody, and it's worth it. So, totally applaud that. I think things are going to change as far as the community goes as Bitcoin adoption increases. Like, I've only been to a few like Bitcoin related conferences, and I've bumped into Ben multiple times. In fact, I used to harass him every time he walked by, and then oddly, he would get a phone call every time he saw me, and then just like would walk by, like looking at his phone and pointing at his phone. Just I kind of got the impression maybe he
It's
was
just
tired
bad
of me.
timing, man. It's just bad timing. I swear to God, it's just like
Like,
super
oh.
important things just happen when I'm around you. That's all.
Yeah, oddly, yeah, no, sorry, important phone call. Sorry, I know there was hands also.
I did a shirtless workout with Ben. It was
Did
very
you?
exciting.
Oh
It was the
man, I
first
don't
time
want
I
to do
met him.
that. I
Yeah.
yeah, no.
Other than that, that was the beach one.
Yeah, the proof of work before Pacific Bitcoin a couple years
The proof
ago.
of workout.
Yeah,
Oh, I was invited
that
to
was
that, but
good.
I believe I may have been
No,
hungover.
I don't think so. We lost your invite.
No, Big
Hey,
Sean
Matthew
invited
Macro.
me. There he
He's
is.
got his hand up.
Eric's here. We got a bunch of new speakers. So
Yep, and then
yeah.
Eric. Love to hear from Eric, but Matthew Macro has his hand up.
Indeed. You just call me Macro Matt. um, no, I just threw something in the nest that I kind of resonated with when Ben was talking that, the stuff that happens at a local level is super important. And I saw this post yesterday that I shared because I just thought it was really good where this guy basically went through somebody in his local town had, I guess, graffitied some signs that were like local, speed signs and stuff. And he was getting frustrated with the world and then just decided, you know what? Like, It doesn't cost me much. I'm just going to go out and clean the graffiti off myself. And he left one of them still graffitied. And then 15 years later, that sign is still graffitied. And kind of the lesson that he took away was like, you can just go out and do things to make your local community better. And you don't really need to ask for permission for it. And it just, Ben talking about people doing stuff like that locally, I think it's so important. And I feel like for whatever reason, because of the internet, sometimes we all feel like you have to make this grand impact. And it's like, you really don't. It's like, it takes a whole society of people all just deciding, hey, I'm going to do this one little thing. And then the next thing you know, like a whole lot of really good stuff has happened. But if everybody just is apathetic and says, oh, there's nothing I can do, then that's how you end up with societal degradation over time. So, anyways, I just thought it was a cool post, and so I shared it. And Ben's talk just made me think about it. So, yeah.
Thanks, Macro Matt. Hey, Eric Rice, how's it going?
Hey guys, how we doing?
I
Good.
just learned because I was late to yesterday's spaces. I was jumping off a podcast that there might be a little shindig in Las Vegas.
There
Vegas
is
shindig. Vegas. Sorry,
Vegas,
Eric.
baby. Yeah, absolutely. I'll have a location. I'm trying to get I have a lot of friends in Vegas, so I'm trying to get us an industry bar, which is usually kind of quiet and concealed. But we'll definitely have a space by Saturday. Our company's going to donate $1,000 bar tab or whatever it is to get everybody on Twitter. If you're on Twitter and you're on these spaces,
1,000 Bitcoin? Damn.
no way, I'm paying that bar fiat, 100%. It's for liquor, right? So we throw the bad money at the liquor. But yeah, if you guys want beers or whatever, there'll be $1,000 tab waiting. Anybody who's on these spaces, you're more than welcome to join. On Saturday, we'll have a location and date, so we'll have all that stuff mapped out. And then Monday on the space, and then we can post it everywhere. It has nothing to do with a conference. It has nothing to do with a promo or anything. It's just literally come and hang out, meet each other. I love kind of going through ways in which, like we were just talking about, ways in which you're orange pilling people or educations that you're doing, just finding ways that we can support each other. I think the most interesting thing about the Bitcoin community, because I talked to, I'm not an OG. So somebody posted that the other day. I'm a class of 2021. And I have literally gone from 60-40 stock bond portfolio years ago to 70% Bitcoin, 30% gold and silver. And I believe in that. I believe that model is actually where a lot of people should be. But I think it's fascinating to meet so many Bitcoiners that that you find Bitcoin and then your mind opens up and you see all this other corruption and everything that's happening in the world. I was the opposite. I'm way into that. I've been in that for years. But at the end of the rainbow, I was like, well, how do I get out of this mess? And gold and silver made sense. And then you learn about Bitcoin, and it's like, okay, I see the transition. So I love it's like going to church and hearing people's testimonies. So it's kind of that, like, what's your Bitcoin story? How'd you get here? How can we support each other? I think that's so important. Having guys like TC on here and BTCsessions. I mean, this is kind of a blessing for new people here. But just a chance to meet each other, a chance to hang out, a chance to share stories like one from today. My partner and I just launched a Bitcoin meetup in our neighborhood. We live in this big neighborhood. We have like a lagoon. It's like a nice neighborhood. But we have 2,800 homes in this facility or this community. And I thought he and I were the only Bitcoiners. And for the last 6 months, we've just met so many other people who were tiptoeing in, or we met one guy who's an absolute whale and we had no clue. So, organize those things. I don't do Facebook anymore. I got kicked off it years ago. So, Facebook, if you have it, do a community page and just say, hey, listen, anybody want to sit and talk about Bitcoin? It's kind of that intro. You get to know each other. So we're trying to recreate that in Las Vegas, and love to see you all there. I'd love to see you all there. It'd be great.
So, Loren, you better screenshot the space, scroll through and keep screenshotting so that no one tries to show up to the event who doesn't join the spaces.
I love that
Are you,
idea. Wonderful.
okay,
I'm
go.
doing it right now. I think we got Matt.
Hey, yep,
Matt
M2.
McConaughey.
Hey, so one of the things that we were talking about earlier is how we can educate each other and empower each other, and we don't have to make a global impact. We can just teach the people the problem that Bitcoin solves, and then talk about the fiat thing, and then kind of spiral from there and take the conversation where it wants to go. I wanted to point out that conversation is incredibly anti-fragile, meaning it doesn't matter if the subject is Democrat, Republican. It doesn't matter if they're rich or poor. Like, even if they're super rich, you can explain that there's other people who have better access to the fiat trough and they're getting much richer than you are because they're closer to the center of gravity, and that's not fair. Like me, I'm very pragmatic and I want to get much wealthier to look after my family. Well, guess what? I hated that I wasn't actually a central bank gangster, and because I was never going to be one, I was really excited to find out there really was freedom technology that could reset the game and let us all play based on our own abilities, not based on some other BS. So I encourage everyone to consider, using Bitcoin as a way to get past the left-right logjam we find ourselves in right now. They're intentionally polarizing us to split us apart and keep our focus off them. And I would just, don't take the bait, talk Bitcoin, and number go up eventually because fiat is going to go down.
That is so well said, by the way. The left right is an illusion. It all has to do with you. Like the more you, I'm from Chicago. I didn't join a gang as a kid and I didn't join a political party as an adult. There's no difference between the two things trying to claim territory of the mind. You got to be able to find a way to build common ground. We have so much more in common with altcoiners and all these other people than we could possibly imagine if we cut through the BS and in the end the actual truth comes out. And that's why Terrence, Loren, Darkside, Thomas, all these guys do such a good job welcoming new ideas. And I'm glad to see Humble Warrior on here. She is awesome. Thank you for inviting me to the Christian Bitcoiners group. I love that group. Get God in your life. That's all I'm going to say. I'm done. Get God in your life.
Got Feather up again. Hi, Humble.
I was just going to ask if that means
Hey
there's going to
guys.
be. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just, I didn't say hi to Humble yet today, so.
I know. I haven't said anything. So yes, I am here. I'm alive. I'm active. Hello. Good to be here, guys. And thanks for that, Eric. It's good to have you in there.
Go ahead, Feather. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to ask Eric if that meant there was going to be like a NFT kind of entry token that we need to get into the bar in Vegas.
Yeah, I stay away from the not freaking tradable things.
Hey, we don't use the N word in here.
Not freaking tradable. That's what it should stand for. No NFT entry needed.
I see we've also got Bitcoin Pilot up here. How's it going, Pilot? I guess it's not going very well for Pilot.
Maybe
Thomas?
he's
No, it's good.
piloting.
Sometimes
He's piloting.
I'm in a
We do
bit of
have
a
free
area.
Dom. There he is. Pilot.
No, I'm good. I'm down walking on the beach as usual. But I saw something the other day that I thought was interesting. Like, where do you think the Bitcoin quote unquote community is going? Somebody posted like, we don't have indoor plumbing culture. Will we have a Bitcoin culture once Bitcoin's fully adopted?
Well, I don't go to any internet conferences anymore. Do you guys?
What do you call this?
Or listen to internet podcasts? Yeah, can you imagine?
Yeah, I guess that's my point. Is like, once we're there, once we're at a greater adoption, do we all just fade into other things, or pick up other topics, or will Bitcoin kind of always be there? The way that there is still gold. It's for community, I guess. Peter Schiff, although that guy is
The
losing it.
beach is
But yeah, I'm
the
curious.
beach is swallowing you
There will still
alive, buddy.
be Bitcoin conferences. Oh, can you not hear me? Shit.
I
Yeah,
think you're drowning. Put your head above water.
right.
Why don't we hear from Ben while you resurface?
Yeah.
I honestly think it just gets more and more niche, right? Like right now, I think we've kind of hit the peak of like just general Bitcoin conferences, right? Like we've kind of hit that fever pitch of like, oh wow, we're getting tens of thousands of people out to a very, very generalized where you can get information on a bunch of different stuff, kind of Bitcoin event. And we have just general Bitcoin meetups and just people coming to learn. But at some point, everybody kind of knows what's up in general with Bitcoin. But I do think what we're going to see over the coming, I don't know, decade or so is that the Bitcoin events and talks and meetups, and we're already starting to see a little bit of it, is it focuses on a particular thing. It's going to be a lightning event. It's going to be a privacy event. It's going to be perhaps even just like a circular economy based event, because I don't think that people will necessarily yet be using Bitcoin in their day-to-day life, like at levels to the point where it's just natural yet. I think that's going to take a long time.
Ben, I'm really looking forward to seeing you at the UTXO Consolidation Conference. That's going to be incredible.
That one's, I'm pretty sure that is that's coming next month. I think that's the big
I
one.
think Wicked is going to actually run that one.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, he invited me. But yeah, like it's gonna get niche, and some of it will be philosophical, some of it will be practical in terms of learning actual skills, some of it will be community based, and I think there's a lot of overarching themes that will continue on that are rooted in Bitcoin, but kind of take on their own life. Like, yeah, you don't listen to an internet podcast or go to an internet event, but there's definitely tech events that are focused on different applications for different uses. So I think it just kind of niches out like that over longer periods of
Hey,
time. And yeah.
Ben, piggybacking on that, before we get to, I know Thomas had his hand up, and then I wasn't aware that Dom Bay was actually in jail or something, but we have a free Dom person that's had his hand up for a while too. So we're not forgetting about you guys. So we'll get to free Dom and Thomas in a second here. But piggybacking off of that and maybe addressing what Pilot said too is I always thought that I felt like this special connection, and we would just say Bitcoiners, but I really think we could tweak that to say early adopters of Bitcoin because that's whose mind I felt in sync with. Like if we talked about vibrations in our podcast yesterday, and it was like we were vibing together. And when we did events like the pleb parties and whatnot, to me it felt like a big old family reunion or high school reunion of people that I'd known for a long time because our brains were totally on the same plane, and I think that part of it will also change as, Bitcoin adoption grows. And I really think that it's important that we keep these connections that we've made earlier on because, well, that's the cool people. No, because that's really the people that we really vibed with and really were on, like our brains think differently. We're seeking, we're looking for truth. We were always out searching for these things. And then to be able to go against the flow, the populace and the naysayers and whatnot. I mean, it was a different breed of people, and I think that whole niche is going to move and change, and so we need to kind of hold on to these connections and hold on to each other because I really think that part of it's going to change. To get back to what Bitcoin Pilot was saying,
I, I
Thomas.
just, I just
Oh, go
wanted
ahead.
to,
Yeah, chime in.
before the last thing there, just to kind of, I think the crux of what you're saying is there's an ethos that seems to be prevalent amongst the early adopters, amongst the people that came to Bitcoin, I'd say generally prior to this cycle. And that seems to be shifting a little bit because more and more people are understanding that there's value for Bitcoin, and every person in some way, shape, or form will find Bitcoin valuable in different ways. And so right now, there's a lot of kind of, I see it more where people are like, oh, Bitcoin has been captured because somebody that I don't like is using it. Because there's a lot of like, oh, let's go to a conference about like, regulations and like how the government is going to handle this. And we've got, the strategic reserve and all these different things. And to an extent, like, yes, those events are very different in ethos from the early adopters. However, I think on the other side, that doesn't forego an individual from the freedom that Bitcoin affords them. And so, what I hope to see is, yes, are we going to have a number of we'll call them statist Bitcoin events? Absolutely. But what I would love to see complementing that is events that cover how to subvert the state. So I hope to see both ends of the spectrum because, again, when somebody that you don't agree with is able to use Bitcoin, it just makes it better and stronger for you because Bitcoin is for enemies.
100%. When we used to game theory it out, it played out just like we're seeing it. but now that it's happening, it's a tough pill to swallow, like some of those things you're describing there. It's just like, well, we've known it all along, but now that it's happening in real time, it's still kind of tough to witness. But totally agree, Ben. Terrence, whose hand was it next? We were gonna go Thomas and then Dom.
Thomas, Free Dom, and then Eric.
Hey, so Terrence, you mentioned like no one goes to the internet conferences anymore because it's kind of been part of the system. So like back in the day, like in the 90s, Interop, if for those old timers will remember, Interop was sort of the big networking that morphed into like the internet. And now Interop has 1,000 people going to it. It's just it's not that big a deal because it's morphed into other things, like all the things that the internet became. At some point, Bitcoin will hit that tipping point, and the kind of conferences we'll go to won't be about Bitcoin and establishing it. Is it truth? Is it all the things that we know it to be? It will be what are the implications of Bitcoin in society? How will society transform? And there'll be a conference on healthcare and how Bitcoin could change healthcare, or how it could change banking industry, or how it could even change nation state government organizations. So we're going to move very quickly. And I think the thing that I spent a lot of time thinking about is the so what of Bitcoin if the thesis pans out. So the thesis, we're sitting at 85,000. Most people think it's going to go to a much higher number. Okay, so what? What happens to society when that happens? Because if we go to 250,000 or $1 million, there'll be a new class of wealth accretion. What are people going to do with that wealth? I mean, you can only ski behind one yacht a day, right? So I think it's worth a conversation, worth thinking about. How are you going to interact with your family, your friends, your community? So I think the conferences will morph into more specific topics about the so what of Bitcoin. Right now, the Bitcoin conference is a what conference.
That's great, Thomas. Yeah, I think you and Ben are right on that. Hey, Eric.
Oh, go to Dom. Go to Dom. He's been waiting longer than me.
Perfect. That was my test. You were good. Dom, you're next. Free Dom.
Thank you. Freedom was taken, so I just extended it. Sorry about that. Quick question for Ben. How long until self-custody tools will have a user experience that is more easy or easier for the normie population to really take, I think, Bitcoin to that next level? I compare it to internet back in the early days where normies were learning how to use HTML, and that was really a kind of a waste of time once systems were in place for everyone. So how far are we away from that?
I think with what I'm seeing with your average wallet that you download nowadays, it's getting closer and closer. And what I mean is it's a tricky situation when, the first users of Bitcoin were just, it's all on chain. And, right now fees are low. But, with those fee spikes, there's some navigation, and we're trying to teach people about lightning and everything like that. And I think what we need to recognize is that the way that we used to teach needs to be completely inversed. And what I mean is when you start with all of the nuance of full, like, on-chain self-custody, backups, like all of these different things, which is a good foundation to have. But then after that, you're like, but if you actually want to transact, here's a thing called Lightning, and this is what's going to happen, and da da da, and it's built in layers, and and then there's these other things, and like there's custodial and non-custodial. Like there's a lot. Like when you start by explaining Bitcoin, the base layer, and then move on to Lightning, like you likely have already lost the person the second you go to the next thing. And so I think that the realistic trajectory and the optimal goal is going to be starting with the lowest barrier to entry to get somebody. Like, what do you do typically? What would you have done back in the day is send somebody $1 and have them send it back and go back and just show them like, oh, here you go, it worked. You have a wallet in 2 seconds. I think that the trajectory will be making sure people start and get interested and then obtain as much self-sovereignty as possible, and always leave those breadcrumbs to lead them further down that rabbit hole. And so it's a tough one to start with most self-sovereign and then build people up to usability. People don't stay engaged that way. And it's better to have somebody start down the sovereignty path and maybe only make it a certain degree or a certain amount down that path, but they're better off because they're using Bitcoin and they've got a decent degree of self-sovereignty than showing them the most complicated over the top stuff first and then having them just turn around right away and not even get involved. So in terms of the wallets, I think they're starting to do that by default. And what I mean is you're downloading a wallet, it actually has a seed, and it's using different things in the back end depending on your habits, but you still kind of have to set it up a little bit. Whereas I think in the future, you'll download a wallet and it'll ask you a few simple layman questions. What is this for? Is this going to be savings or a spending wallet? Are you going to be dealing with large amounts or small amounts primarily? Are you going to be sending more or receiving more, or is it going to be equal? And based on those very simple questions, it will intuit how it's going to work in the background. Is it going to be a full on-chain wallet? Is it going to be a full self-custody Lightning wallet and open up a Lightning channel for you right away? Is it going to be liquid swaps? Is it going to be eCash for small amounts and zaps? It will just kind of know based on your answers, and it may even update its habits in the background based on your actual actions from that point forward. So I think that's where we're headed. I think it'll be, the average person doesn't even really know. They just know I have a Bitcoin wallet and it works for what I want to do. And those that want the control will just go into the advanced settings. I think that's what's coming.
Thanks, Ben. Hey, just one quick follow-up. On your mentoring, what have you found between one-on-one tutoring versus, say, trying to train a classroom? What do you find more beneficial for both the trainee and yourself trying to do the training?
Yeah, so it's really different. Like with one-on-one, obviously you're getting like the immediate response to any single thing, any question, and it's very clear when I'm working with somebody. Oh, that doesn't make sense to them yet. Let's iron that out before we move on. In a classroom setting, doing a workshop, there's, first of all, I can't do it by myself. I need somebody else in the room, at least one person in the room, to go around and help with little things. Because like if we're working on, using a cold card with Sparrow Wallet, inevitably there's going to be somebody whose laptop dies or like they can't install the program or something. And those little things that if I'm the one that has to deal with it, the whole class of like 15 people is at a standstill. And so you need to anticipate that things are just naturally going to take longer. You're going to accomplish less because you're catering to whatever the most technologically timid person in the room is at, and that's just a way to kind of navigate it. I would also say that it also leads to interesting things. So when you have a group, so we're doing a workshop here where I live right before the Bitcoin rodeo in after the Bitcoin rodeo in Calgary. We're going up to Banff in the mountains, and we're doing like a deep dive workshop, and everybody's staying at a hotel. Actually, we haven't even really announced it yet, so surprise. So we're gonna have like a like apocalypse Bitcoin scenario. Like, what if your government was after you? Like, what are the tools? How would you keep private? How would you keep secure? How would you manage like a group multi-sig wallet so that there's no single points of failure? It's basically like all these different scenarios we're going to run through and do this big workshop. And in a group setting versus a one-on-one, we're challenging people to be like, okay, here's the general outline. You guys are now going to work together in a small group, and we're going to have multiple groups around the room. and you get a lot more interactive. And from that, some really interesting things can come up, some problems can come up, and then the troubleshooting around them becomes very interesting. So it's just a totally different dynamic from individual to group.
He puts the Ben in beneficial. And if you haven't been to Banff, it's it should be a bucket lister. It's gorgeous. Amazing. Bring your skis. Terrence, didn't we have was it Bitcoin Pilot? I saw a hand, but it's gone
We've
now.
got Eric, and then yes, Pilot, if he's above water now.
Just a couple things. I don't think I've ever done this before, but I do have a podcast. It's just one I do. It's not like a profession or anything. I'd love to have some of you guys on there, or if any of you guys in the audience are interested in coming on and kind of doing a Bitcoin journey. I'd love to. You'll have low views on YouTube. I just had Owen Schroyer on the show, by the way, who's a huge name, and it shows like 300 views. When I went to bed, it was 1,200 the first night, so they like diminished my views. So it'll probably be on Rumble. But I'd love to get a lot of Bitcoin journeys. My podcast is about money, politics, and religion. I don't make any money doing it. I just do it for fun. But I'd love to have you guys on there and just have those discussions. The other thing, kind of leading back into this, and I'm sure Bitcoin Pilot, who is a treasure, he has some great information that comes out. I was on a quick podcast or a quick space yesterday with Thomas talking to Arch about the lending stuff. And I would really love for Thomas, if you could break that down for everybody, what they were discussing, because the fundamental path to wealth is buy, borrow, and buy. Right? You never actually sell anything, and a lot of those doors are opening up for folks with large and small stacks. And Thomas, you had some great questions. I'd love to get a breakdown of what you guys talked about.
Yeah, so the Bitcoin loan market is in its nascent stages, right? So it's going to develop rapidly, and I'm very interested to see how the large institutional banks start to do it. And we're probably, pick a time frame, 12, 24 months away when you start to do that. Now, if you buy into the Bitcoin point of view, that we're going to see compound annual growth rates north of 25%. If you could, I would just say this is rough math because I've run lots of models on this. If you can borrow at an APR that's less than half the CAGR, so that would be less than 12%. I'd argue 10% or lower is the sweet spot. And you can keep your LTV low. Now, most like Arch Lending and others, they'll go up to 40, 50%, sometimes more. I think that is risky because I think you risk liquidation, and I would not want to ever do that. So I would keep LTVs in the 10% range, which is extremely low, meaning you'd have to have a catastrophic failure in the collateral class. So a Bitcoin would have to go down 75% to even approach a liquidation window. So now what happens when I do 10%? Let's just use some rough math and people can get a feel for how this might work. I've got $1 million in Bitcoin. Now, not everybody has $1 million. I'm just using it because it's easier math. I pull $100,000 out. Now, what do I do with that 100,000? I live life. I go on a trip. I get a wedding. I go to college. I buy a second home, a new truck, whatever I might want to do with that. That compounds at 10%. So at the end of the year, I now own 110,000. The collateral that I have, the $1 million of collateral, is now worth 1.25 million. And so what happens is I roll the loan. I roll the loan after 12 months. I roll the interest on the loan as well, and I borrow another 100,000. So now I owe 110,000 plus the next 100,000. I'm at 210. I got to pay interest on that. So now I owe whatever the math is, $231,000 at the end of the second year. At the end of the second year, my stack, if I'm still growing at 25%, is going, is now up to 1.5 plus million. And so what you're doing is saying, rather than, and this isn't a question of whether you should sell your Bitcoin or not. It's a question of should you spend your Bitcoin or not. And borrowing becomes an alternative to spending. And I would just say people should study on this. Everyone's situation is different. I'm not advocating you do this, that, or the other thing because I don't know what your situation is going to be. I would simply say you will be offered very soon very compelling loan products. And I would say you want to be very conservative here. You want to keep LTVs very low. And if you play it smart, and we do have a manifestation of Bitcoin growing at 25% for the next few years, you're going to be able to keep rolling those loans and paying that off tax free. And then at the end of the period, it could be 5 years, 10 years, or even longer. You settle up later and you end up selling less Bitcoin than you would have had you sold it at the beginning to pay for the wedding or the house or the truck or whatever it is you were going to spend the money on. So think it through. Arch Lending is they're at the forefront, an innovative company, but I think where you're really going to see this go mainstream is when Schwab offers it, Fidelity, some of the big banks like JPMC and Citigroup, et cetera. When they start doing that, you're going to see very interesting products. The last thing I'll say, just for consideration, is it will become harder and harder if the thesis pans out and we do see the asset price go up 25% a year. Now we're in the 250,000, 500,000 range. It's going to be harder and harder to buy Bitcoin at the institutional level. It's going to be very difficult. And they will offer predatory loans to get you to post collateral so that they can foreclose on you. So that's why it's very important for you to study this and run all of the Monte Carlo simulations, the risk analysis. And I would just say, I've done a lot of this already. I would just say, you want to keep it at 10%, maybe 20% max, never go above 35% or 40. You do that, you're going to be in pretty good shape, I think. You start getting into 60, 70% LTV, you're at risk of liquidation. So anyway, very interesting. I think it's going to offer lots of freedom for people who have a sizable stack. And for those who don't, it's an opportunity if you need a little bit of cash and don't want to sell, it's a way for you to put your money into Bitcoin, build it up. And if you ever need that money back, you can borrow for short-term needs.
This segment brought to you by Arch Lending. Go ahead, Eric, and
Thanks,
then
Thomas.
I think
Yeah,
we're going to
that
go
was
to
great.
TJM after Eric. Eric wanted to weigh
Well,
in.
wait, I think we had Pilot's been trying to get back up, but yeah,
Oh, that's right. We had some
TJ's
technical
hand flew
issues.
up.
Yeah,
But yeah, I just wanted to say these products are coming out everywhere,
they are.
and as many of us know, Strike just released their own version, which they are slowly rolling out. So Strike is going to be doing lending. Pilot, if you are above water, let's hear from you. If not,
Yeah,
There he
can
TJ.
you hear
is. He's
me?
back.
Can
Yes,
you
Yep.
hear me,
sir.
guys? Okay, cool. I want to just go back to the question that was asked to Ben earlier about when is self sovereignty gonna be easy or easier? Comparing it to HTML and that sort of thing. And I don't think it's a net. I don't see self custody getting any. I mean, maybe a little bit, but not quantum leap easier for people. And I say that because self custody is really radical self responsibility, and there is no shortcut to that. Like, you're gonna have to learn how to properly take a 12-word seed phrase. You're gonna have to properly store that, how to send it and receive it using one of these softwares, either using a um, closed source software, closed source wallet, or an open source wallet and open source software like Sparrow, like Electrum, like Cold Card. I think that the change will be not so much that the technology will change, but the education will change. So when you say to somebody, seed phrase or 12 words or 24 words, it's not a quizzical look of what the hell are you talking about. It's oh yeah, a seed phrase. Yeah, I'm familiar. Or I have one, or I have a couple, or whatever it might be. I think that it's going to be a education or a change in the way that people see this technology rather than this technology itself changing. I get that question all the time of like, when is my grandmother going to be able to take custody of her Bitcoin? And I don't know that the answer is ever, but I do remember a time when I was much younger, and the idea of an email address was confusing to people. Well, you mean my AOL? No, you have an internet service provider that you actually have your own email address now that's provided to you, or and now everybody has an email. There's no question about what that is, and I think that's really more the way that Bitcoin will go in terms of self custody, rather than the technology itself changing. But I will say, in terms of my question before about whether or not we're going to have a Bitcoin community in the future, or whether it's going to go the way of the internet or indoor plumbing, um, the barrier, there is now a wall up that I've noticed recently when I talk to people when I'm trying to talk about Bitcoin, and they now say, "Oh, I've got the ETF," and there's like this stone wall now. Okay, I've got ETF, I've got access to Bitcoin. I don't have to go any further. The conversation stops there, which is very frustrating as a Bitcoiner. You want to have this conversation, and they think there's nothing else to know because they already have access to the ETF. But yeah, that I just want to make those 2 points as I was listening. And I've got lots of thoughts about lending, but I'll leave it at that for now.
Thanks, Pilot. Did you want to respond, Hair Flare, or we go to TJ?
I'm
I
assuming
think
you mean
let's go to TJ.
there he is.
All right, yeah. Hey guys, morning and welcome, Ben. Good to chat. Just wanted to touch quickly on the loans thing. Just wanted to highlight that, yeah, be very careful with them. Right now, also the pricing of them. If you've got access to any other form of credit, home equity lines of credit, or even an unsecured line of credit, you can possibly get that at a lower rate than some of these loans. So the pricing on those, I think, is still a little off the mark as far as the risk reward ratio. But if you don't have access to those other forms of credit, then but you can use it. Just be very careful. And for people that don't have fiat income. But yeah, you're right, TJ. Yeah. I mean, yeah, the access to those forms of credit is often tied to fiat income. So fair point. Um, Ben, the Banff session sounds awesome. So I eagerly await my TA invite there. Just kidding, but
Come right along.
that
I'll
does.
say that TJ has been at literally every workshop that I've hosted, regardless of where it has been, and has been an absolute asset having been there. So, yeah, man, come on down.
Dude, I mean, in all fairness, you basically just let me TA them, which was my way of attending them for free. So kudos to you on that. But no, they've been awesome, and yeah, anyone who can attend the Banff one, it sounds awesome. So that should be a good one. I was wondering if you could maybe give us a couple insights. Like I attended the first SaaS market in Calgary, and I know you've kept them going. Was just wondering a bit on some of the takeaways as you've continued with that, on kind of what that experience has been like, what the reception's been like from the people attending, but also like the pre-coiners and no coiners in their life, and kind of any learnings that you've gotten from those, and any thoughts you'd have on someone who wants to do a similar thing in their city, as far as some of the learnings
Hey
that you
Ben,
might help them skip
Ben,
over.
before you answer that question, we probably want to do a little. I'm assuming there's at least a portion of the listeners that aren't aware, and it kind of ties in nicely to what Macro said as well, which is get out there. I think it was Macro, Matt. Get
It was
out there
Matt. Yeah.
in your community and do stuff. And I actually did think of you doing that in Calgary as well. But I think we had been blowing your horn enough today, so I didn't throw that out there. But I also wanted to give, I don't know if he cares or not, but TJM probably gives good advice because I believe the word is he's an accountant. So, yeah, his background, he knows what he's talking about. So when he's talking about loans and rates and whatnot, he knows his stuff. So, anyway, over to you, Ben. I really appreciate you actually doing more than just those tutorials. But yeah, actually, the outreach in your local community there, amazing. Do you want to just give a little background on that?
Yeah, so this came about a year and a half ago, and it was right in around the time, I think, the thing that kind of set me off was Swan had let people know that there was like some pressure on them in and around, hey, like if you coin join and then you deposit, or you withdraw and then immediately coin join, we may be forced to close your account, because if we don't, then we'll get our bank account shut down, kind of thing. And I saw a lot of people bitching and moaning about it and kind of shooting the messenger. And I thought that was just like the wrong approach. And everybody was upset about what was happening there, but nobody was really like actually doing anything about it. And to me, stepping back, realistically, the only way that ceases to be an issue is if you're actually just using Bitcoin person to person. And so I don't know. It just really, really bothered me that everybody's like, this is bullshit. We're, like, we got to stop them from doing this. But again, like regulators going to regulate, government's going to, status going to state. Like this is just how it is. And yeah, you might get some positive treatment for a current administration or certain jurisdictions, but like at the end of the day, like you have to take the bull by the horns. You have to take control, and we have the tool right in front of us. We're using it right now, or we're not. And
Hey
so,
Ben, can I just
yeah,
throw in too? Like, I'm also assuming a lot of people don't realize your involvement in the whole trucker thing. Like, you actually either help custody or whatever. Can you just give a brief? I know you're leading into the local Calgary market thing that you're doing, but maybe just for those who don't know your involvement with the funds and whatnot of the trucker protests as well.
yeah. Greg Foss reached out to me as the trucker protest was kind of beginning, and there was starting to be fundraising efforts. And this was like well before shit really hit the fan. It was just kind of the starting of it. And he said, "Hey, would you be able to maybe help set up a way for people to donate like via Lightning?" And so I had a Lightning node at home going, the very same one that I later nuked. But I had a Lightning node at home going, and I had a mechanism to kind of easily create a donation portal page. And then I kind of put together a multi-sig with Nunchuck wallet, like a group wallet. So myself, Greg Foss, Jeff Booth, BJ Dichter, and Caribou, Nobody Caribou, did a 3 of 5 multi-sig and started accepting donations. I was expecting a small amount. Our initial goal was like, what was it, like, I can't remember, like 10 million sats, which at the time would have been around $4,000, which is hilarious. And we ended up after they started confiscating the regular donations and freezing funds and shutting down bank accounts, a lot of Bitcoiners came through and started donating. And we ended up getting over 21 Bitcoin. So 1/1,000,000th of all Bitcoin that will ever exist were donated to that single cause. And so not everything was done perfectly. There were mistakes along the way, but at the end of the day, it was the only digital payment mechanism that actually successfully made it to the intended recipients, even though it wasn't 100%. It was in and around, I think, 70% of it, because the RCMP were managed to, at some point along the way, when there was a concentration of funds, physically get a hold of key material. So, like there's still the physical attack vector, but nonetheless, the digital mechanism worked. So with that said, again, like the point being is that if you don't like how things are working, and if you don't like, like the idea that, oh, I'm going through my exchange and I can't use my Bitcoin as I see fit before or after I use the exchange, then you need to find a way to not have to use an exchange. That is the point of failure. And so if you're just using Bitcoin in your day-to-day, if you're earning it and spending it, then all of a sudden you become a lot harder to F with. And if you can build a local community of people that just create value for others and accept Bitcoin and spend Bitcoin, that's really unshakable, because it's really hard to tell people that you're not allowed to interact, that you're not allowed to know somebody that does something and that is willing to accept sats. And so we built a local market called the Sat Market here in Calgary. We host it twice a year, but it's not that we only transact twice a year. It's that's where we come together all at the same time to, yes, host a market, but also to make contacts so that throughout the year I can continue to get my needs met and be able to pay with Bitcoin. So I've got lots of local farmers nearby where I can get beef, eggs, chicken, all that kind of stuff. I've got my barber that accepts Bitcoin. I've got a dentist. I've got a personal trainer. I've got a plumber. So it's not just like Bitcoin merch. It's like actual stuff that I need day to day. And it's constantly growing. There's, of course, local artists and things like that there. But the main point is that we're creating a community, not just in a small town where it's easy to walk down the street and just orange pill all the merchants down the road, but in a large city of, I think, 1.4 million people, where it's harder to just have brick and mortar stores, but rather we're creating a community that knows each other, that can reach out to each other. And kind of like we're just integrated with the regular society, but we're kind of marching to the beat of our own drum. So that's the sat market. There's another one coming up right before the Bitcoin rodeo. So again, if anybody wants to get out to Calgary, the Bitcoin rodeo is, I'm just looking at my calendar here, but the Bitcoin rodeo is the last weekend in June. So that's the 28th and 29th. So the evening of the 27th, Friday the 27th, is we're doing a night market for the sat market. And after the after the Bitcoin rodeo on the Monday is when we're doing the Bitcoin mentor, our workshop in Banff. So there's a bunch of stuff. If you ever want to see Canadian Rockies, then come out.
I think we had Rusty next. Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, just make sure. No, I was gonna speak to what Thomas said about the lending. I was in credit strategy for a long time in banking, and yeah, definitely be careful on the loan to value. I was looking at Arch; they're not a bank, so if these products do begin to roll out into the larger financial institutions, you got to be careful because they're under the whole stronghold of the FDIC, which brings in a whole slew of regulation. But this isn't unlike any type of loan that goes against a security, and I'm talking about a listed stock, right? We would in banking typically you can get about a 50% loan to value, but you also are susceptible to margin calls. And so it looks like they got a 60% max and your margin call at 70%. So that is very good advice by Thomas to stay low. I do like these products and the idea of them. I would like to see them go into more of probably a single pay. Uh, Single pay loans are typically on things like agriculture. You get it and then you pay literally one time, right? It's about 12 months. You get your seed, your feed, everything like that, and then you pay it at the end of the time frame. But he's right; they're gonna be coming out. I think it's a good thing because we all know where this is going. Everyone in here is smart and loves Bitcoin, but just make sure you read the fine print. You never want them taking away your Bitcoin, but this also does keep you from having to get rid of it and spend your Bitcoin. So, love the idea, love the products. Any of those that are coming out, I'm definitely interested. I've been scouring, but yeah, you always want to be cognizant of that and the interest rate. And I do like what he said about the 10% lower because you got to think about unsecured. And this is also similar to like I believe it was BTC session. I can't remember who said it or Pilot about a home equity loan, right? Which is just interest on your interest only on your home. So just be wise about it. You never want your stuff taken away, right? But anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Rusty. Hey, Punchy, I don't think we've heard from you today. And I see Dark is back. How's it going, guys? Can I talk real quick about Puncher and him doing awesome last night? Just got to throw that out there. He Punch, is that all right? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, guys, stepping out of a conference. How you doing?
Good. He dominated when Schiff pulled him up to talk about Bitcoin, and then he got muted. But I listened to the whole thing; it was amazing. He did great. I just wanted to brag about him a little bit there.
I will say I lost my cool a little bit because for those who, it's just a real quick story. Like I jumped up, Peter invited Bitcoiners up to, I guess, educate us on why we're idiots. And it started off, I said, Peter, look, I'm a
gold and silver guy, read all your books, kind of, it was the truth. I mean, I really was into Peter and read all his stuff for years. But I said, I think you're missing that Bitcoin is a protocol. It's not a stock. Because he had gone on and on. And then he made some misrepresentations last night about all the Bitcoiners are talking about how great the economy is. I'm like, I don't know a single Bitcoiner who's saying that. And we're just trying to pump our bags, and that the Winklevoss guys are pumping their bags. And I know all these rich guys who live near me, and they're basically unloading their bags on everybody else to get rich. So it just got crazy. And the crux of it was he had a guy co-hosting who was a silver guy. And that guy just started cackling, like just interrupting the flow of the conversation. And then Peter just muted me, and then just went off this screed that gold can be digitized. And I'm like, well, I didn't know I was muted, but I was going to say, well, why would gold need to be digitized if it was so awesome as a store of value and a medium of exchange? But I had been muted. And again, I don't think Peter is serious about any conversation with Bitcoiners, and he always throws it to, basically you can make jewelry out of gold. That's why it's valuable, which obviously is an argument for why gold is a commodity and not why gold is money. So it was frustrating, but then I realized, who cares? Peter's missed the boat. He even said as much. He's like, I miss Bitcoin. Well, all right, whatever. Actually, you haven't. It's still way early, but we tried, and there were a couple other Bitcoiners who tried to get caught up, but the truth is he wasn't interested in having a conversation. And I think at this point, um, I don't think Peter's interested in learning about Bitcoin, or he's interested in pumping his own bags. Actually, what he's accusing us of. So that's it. I still like Peter, I guess, but he's not interested in any meaningful dialogue.
No, how relevant do you think he is? Like, he's all of his posts contain Bitcoin. Like, has he made a post recently at all without Bitcoin in it? Like, I feel like we do a good job making him pretty relevant. Not to say that he would be irrelevant without Bitcoiners, but as far as his kind of online persona, it seems like he definitely feeds off of the energy from
There's
us.
no such thing as bad publicity, Humble.
Yeah, I know, but I mean that's exactly what
Humble,
I think.
I'm
That's all this
stupid like that.
is.
I
What's
still
that?
thought I'm stupid like that. I still thought that maybe he could be convinced through like a reasonable argument, but that was not going to happen last night. And when you're muting people,
Yeah.
if your argument's so strong, you don't need to mute somebody,
Yep.
particularly in a back and forth that started out very respectfully until the cackling hens all just jumped in. And it was almost like, the Bible when Stephen's talking to the Pharisees, and they just cover their ears and they don't want to hear it, and then they stone him to death. They're just like, I don't want to hear it. I'm going to kill you. And it's kind of felt like that.
I can't imagine he does not have a sizable amount of Bitcoin. He had mentioned in a space too. This isn't the reason I'm saying this solely, but he mentioned that like Brock Pierce lives across the street from him, which maybe he meant that like he actually does, or he lives really quite near to him. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. It's comedy at this point, I think.
It is. It is. But thanks for the nice words. I'm not sure who was saying that, but it's
It's it's
good to look
Rusty.
down and Rusty, thanks. Good to look down in the space and see fellow Bitcoiners got my back. So thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Humble and Lauren, unless you guys have anything, I'm going to need to close down the space here at 10:30, and I also want to be respectful to our special guest today, Ben Sessions.
Thanks, Ben.
Ben,
Thanks for being
in
our
the
special
future,
guest.
yeah, please come prepared. He did a good job. He forgot he didn't put it in his
He was winging it
iCal.
today, ladies and gentlemen, and he did
Yes,
an amazing job. We usually wing
yeah.
it every day, so hey, pats on the back all around, everybody.
Listened in the whole time. It was awesome, Ben. Thank you, sir.
So, can we turn it around and close out by asking Ben why he's bullish?
Ha
Oh,
ha
that's a
ha! The
that's
tables
a
have
great one,
turned,
Humble.
Ben.
Yeah, I mean, I think great question, Humble. I think it's a fantastic question. I am I'm currently bullish. There's a number of things. The community aspect comes up. I think one of the things that I'm bullish for Americans right now is the fact that you've got a little bit of a reprise to build shit out, so that when inevitably at some point another another administration gets in and starts whipsawing that regulation back, that you're a little bit more insulated from it because you just have the tools to make things work. And I think people are doing that right now. The one thing that I'll say is you had Phoenix Wallet leave the US during the last admin, and they're back as of just a few days ago. So if you haven't tried out Phoenix Wallet, it's pretty sweet. It's full self custody Lightning. I'm working on a revamped Phoenix tutorial actually right after I get off this, so that'll come out next Monday. But yeah, check out Phoenix if you haven't already. It's a good self custody Lightning option. So I'm bullish on Phoenix returning, and you guys building out some tools so that the next time there's some sort of choke point happening, you can just continue using whatever you want.
That's awesome. So don't forget, everyone, we will see you guys in Vegas. And Lauren every day is
Vegas.
going to be screenshotting the
Screenshot all the
spaces. So
spaces.
yeah, he's going to have a big poster board outside the
Hey,
club or bar where we are.
Yes.
And
Terrence,
yes,
before you shut down,
Shut her down.
I'm 99% sure that Lawrence Lepard is going to come on Spaces on Friday. So
Oh,
oh,
sorry.
we'll have Larry Lepard on Friday.
Yeah. Lawrence
So
Lepard,
Lauren,
everybody.
yeah, if you could put that out
We're
there,
going to
or
put it out.
create a thing, and I'll send it to Lawrence, and but there's a 99% chance he'll be there.
yeah, we'll put it out. And if he doesn't show up, we'll have special guest Ben
Ben
Sessions.
Sessions, everyone.
Man
Yep.
session round
Last
two.
minute
Be
tag
prepared
in.
this time, Ben.
Woohoo.
Super prepared. Super prepared. Don't worry, guys.
And I also see Dark's hand is up, so we can't close down without the Dark side.
Can't
Yeah,
close
guys,
without
just a
dark.
quick shameless plug. I'm going to be doing a space this afternoon, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 Pacific. We're going to go deep into MSTY, income generating strategies. There's been a ton of questions and sort of bad information floating around these things. So we're going to address those. We're going to talk about the gold market and go deep there. So yeah, feel free to join 5 p.m. Eastern tonight. Thanks, guys. Appreciate the plug.
Thanks, Dark. Appreciate that. Yep, no one would know that better than Dark. I will tell you that. All right, guys. So we will see you tomorrow. Lauren, are you hosting tomorrow?
I shall host tomorrow. Yes, indeed.
Okay. So we're gonna hear lots of jibber jab nonsense, but
Right. Between the two of us.